Okay, well, welcome to Wednesday. Um, just want to start by acknowledging that um, election was last night, and for some people, the results are difficult to process and handle there. So just be aware of that, and I think we're all, if you're not, you should be. If you need help processing those or working through those, understanding of, you just need someone to talk to or vent about it or discuss it or try to understand. Um, Megan, I think, sent out an email to all students about some resources. If um, as my upper level students say, if you need an emotional support faculty member, I can be your emotional support faculty member. I have chocolate and ice cream in my office. So if you just need to stop by and vent or discuss or anything, feel free to do that. Should be around a lot this week. So feel free to do that. Um, we're gonna go continue. Well, again, so Monday we're at a Women in Data and AI conference down in the Twin Cities. It was really nice. It's fun because we get to see companies that do like hire students and do internships there. And it's really interesting to see how some of these companies are using AI and data. General Mills, I was at a presentation by General Mills, which is a big food manufacturer, especially a lot of cereal, breakfast cereal and stuff. So they're talking about how they use some really neat AI tools to kind of classify and predict where in stores their products should be. Target, I neat presentation on Target. They're trying to predict. They have they have this system to track how much inventory is on every shelf, but it's not always accurate. For a number of reasons, people could go into the store and pick up something and put it in their cart, be wandering around the store, and you go online and you say, "Oh, it's there," and you order it online for someone to grab at curbside, and someone goes there, it's not there. They run into issues with theft and things like that. So there's a lot of issues with what when they think that item is on the shelves, but it's actually empty. They don't like that because they lose sales that way there. And so they were talking about using AI, training AI to predict when things, but when their inventory system was wrong. When their inventory system says there's stuff there, but it's actually an empty shelf there. So Toro was there. I haven't seen the Toro one. I hope to see that on recording there. Um who I went to another, I don't remember who the other talk I went to. It's also nice. I talked to people from some Thomson Reuters and other organizations down. Actually, I talked to someone from Elite who's in town here, and she's actually, I think, going to meeting with her and her boss tomorrow to see if she has some data projects she would like our students to do. So we'll keep you informed if there's some data projects we can tackle for Elite. So it was a good conference. Hopefully you did some of the learning material and worked through that. We're getting into arrays this week, and arrays can be kind of complicated here and require a little different thinking here. It requires us often to use loops a lot more and indexes into loops and stuff like that. So today, I was going to break you into pairs and have you do pair program, but I think I'm going to have you work individually. But let's start work individually, but ask each other for help a lot. Okay, so feel free to be working with, if there's someone next to you or nearby, ask them for help. Kiba's over there and she's just bored, aren't you? Yeah, she's just bored. And so go ask her. She'll help for anything. So ask Kiba or ask someone next to you. So I think we'll just work on this. Now, we're gonna do the learning activity there. You just have to post some code by Sunday night to the discussions. It can be here. Now there are some practice problems here you can do. So there, the tabs are up the top, I guess now, but there's these 5 practice problems here. And then there are 2 learning activity problems here. I'm going to walk through this first one, but again, you can do any, you can pick any of the practice problems, either of the 2, either the population problem or the random number dice problem here for that. And just work through it. The goal here is to take a problem, break it down into parts, and solve the parts here. So like here, the problem I'm going to take on, and again, if you want to do the same one, that's fine. I'll work and slowly talk about the solution as we go, that you try to develop this. So we're going to track the population of 5 cities. So we're going to ask the user to enter the names and the populations of 5 cities, print them out in a table there, then calculate the total population of the 5 cities and the average population of 5 cities and print that out here. And we're going to want to do this with arrays eventually, although it's when you're first starting, I think it's almost easier to do it without arrays or at the start. So again, break this problem into smaller steps. What are specific things you need? You can just, I have the examples, so you can number them off, and then try to do the first step there, or reorganize this up. Try to, move up so that step 1 is something you can do there. Now, if even step 1 you can't do, then simplify it. Break it into smaller steps or something like that here to try it out for this. So see if you can take this problem, or again, you can do problem 2, or you can do any of the practice problems, and try to break it down into steps and work on each step. My suggestion again is to do a step, code it, compile it, and run it. Get your code debugged before you go on to the next step, because if you get too much code in there, it's really hard to debug these more complicated programs. So try to do it incrementally. Get part of it working, compiled, running without errors, and then go on to the next part. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet and let you work on this for a little bit. So again, on all of these, I suggest you just start with a new project in Brightspace, in NetBeans, and code from there. So I had a chance to, now that you've had a chance, let's see if I can talk today. Here's how I broke down this problem here. Again, I was just reading the description here. Ask you to enter names of population of 5 cities, print out the table of the city names and their populations, calculate the total population of 5 cities and the average population, and print these both out. So when I did that, I said, well, how do I break that down into parts? So I said, well, first we're going to, ask the user to enter the 5 cities, names and populations. That seemed too complicated. So then I said, well, let's just do the city names. Ask the user to enter the names of 5 cities. And that seemed even too complicated. So then I broke down even further. I said, ask the user to enter the name of 1 city. I can do that. I know how to ask for 1 city's name, read that in and print it out. So those are my first steps. So my code, I just did that. Enter a city name for city 1. I declared a variable called city1 and city1.next input. And then I printed out city1. So now when I run this, enter the name of city1, I can enter Duluth, and it'll print that out. Now I can ask the user to enter the names of 5 cities here. And eventually I want to do this with an array, but I can do it without an array initially and maybe change it to see. So I'm actually just going to copy this code here. Let's see. And paste it in again and again. So I'm just going to copy this code, and do it 5 times here. Now I'm going to need different variables. I have city 1. I'm going to want to say city 2. So I'm going to say enter city 2's population and read that into cities 2 variable and do a next line for city 2. I have to do city 3 here, city 3, city 3, city 3. I have to do city 4, city 4, city 4, city 4. I want to, let's say 1, oops. I got one extra here. Okay. And then city 5 is my 5th city. So I can do it this way. Now when I run this, or then I want to print off all the cities. City 1, city 2, city 3, city 4, and city 5. Here. So now I can enter the first city. So it'll read in the 5 cities and then print those out for me here. So again, I'm breaking that down in these steps. But again, now I might want to do this with an array or kind of clean this up here. So now that I see this, I go, well, I've got city 1, city 2, city 3, city 4, city 5. And each time through, I'm doing a different city. Can I do this in a loop? And or can I use an array for this stuff? And so I'm going to want to change this so I'm using a loop and an array possibly. And again, you can decide if you want to do that later or what organize, you don't have to do these, break it down in these steps and do it in this order, but there's just one way of doing it. So I'm going to next try to figure out how to do this with an array here. So I'm going to look at this some more. I've tried to print off, get the names of 5 cities. And I have all this duplicate code here. So I want to try to switch this into a loop here. So if I want to do something 5 times there and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can do this in a loop for this. So I can do, and again, what kind of loop? So again, if you have a fixed number of times you want to do something, you can use a for loop. That's usually the easiest. So if I remember for maybe index equals 1, index less than or equal to 5, index plus plus. And again, these are all kind of the same. I could take any one of these and move it up here. And then I can get rid of hopefully all of these and just do this in a loop 5 times. Now I've got to be careful here. Oops, I have to say int index equals 1. Okay, so now I'm in a loop. I can say system.out.println enter city, the name of city number, and here I want to print off the index here. It'll be 1. I want to print out 1 the first time, 2 the next time. And I know how to do that. We've done loops, hopefully enough. I can say print off city number and then just add on the index here. So it'll say city 1, 2, 3, 4 for that. But then I'm going to read in my variable. I have a variable called city 2. I have city 1, city 2, city 3, city 4, city 5. And with a variable like this, even though it has like a number city 2 in it, I can't access that. I can't put index here. I can't say city plus index to say city 1 or city 2. That won't work there. I need to use an array. And with an array, I would say city sub-index to access each element in the array. But in order to do that, I have to declare an array. And you're thinking, I don't remember how to declare an array. So again, often you have to go back. I'm going to go into unit 10 here, go to the learning materials for this. Pick one, maybe one of the textbooks. I'm just going to do this first one, array creation, and remind myself how to create array. So rather than doing like int scores, I do int brackets scores there. And I also have to do a new, like here's this actually is just what I want, declare and create an array in one step. And it's an array of strings. So I can actually, I'm just going to copy that over here and put that up at the top of my loop. String bracket. So this will make an array, and I'm going to call it city or cities maybe. And then new string, and then the 5 is how big that array is, 5 elements. And again, I only want 5 cities, so that's the right amount. So now that I have cities, I can use that. I can say, I don't have to declare each variable. I can just say, instead of city2, what do I call my array? Cities. And then I do a bracket, and I can put the 2 in there. But the first time I want to do it, I'm going to do cities 1, and the next time I'm going to do cities 2 and then cities 3. So I actually don't want to put a 2 in there. I want to do the index in that. So what we'll find a lot with arrays is that you'll do them in for loops, and you'll use whatever your index variable is to reference each value in the cities array for this. And then again, I can print this out here. So I'm now using cities sub 1. Cities sub 2. Cities 3, 4, and 5. So I can try this out, see if it's going to work. I made a lot of changes to this. Enter the name of city number 1, so I can do that. City number 2. City number 4. City number 5. And now I get an error, index out of bounds error. And with arrays, you'll get this index out of bounds error. So the index of 5 with an array of list 5 there. So the problem here is that my array only has 5 elements, and you think, well, that seems fine. You're referencing it as 5, and the array has length 5. But the arrays values are, the indexes are a little different here. So with arrays, if I have some cities like Duluth, Minneapolis, whatever, if I have my 5 cities here, they are not indexed, and they're each in its own little storage location here for us. So this is our loop, our arrays. The first one is not, it's not numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Not numbered like that. The first one is always numbered 0, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3. We start counting at 0 here. So when we're trying to reference index 5 here, that's going to give us an error. Because there is no index 5. here. That doesn't exist, just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So one thing we generally do when we're doing arrays and for loops, we start with index equal to 0, index less than the number 5, and then index plus plus, and that'll work out better. And then when we print them out here, similarly, we want to print out starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that. So that's kind of where I'm at now with this. It's not working perfectly, but it's a start. So let's see how you're doing. I'll let you all stop and let you work for a while. So if you, when you run this, if you don't want it to say enter city 0 here, you could say enter this name of the city and do index plus 1. To print out 1 the first time. So it says city 1. So we're storing it in 0, but from the user's point of view, it'll be the first one. It'll be 1. So when you do these problems, one thing we want to do is start using arrays. So you can do some of these simple problems without arrays, but because we're not using that many. Like here, we're doing 5 cities, and you can actually do the whole thing without arrays. It gets kind of long, but let's say you want to do 10 cities or 100 cities there. If you're going to do 100 cities, that you really can't do that without arrays. So we're going to want to always switch to using arrays here. And with arrays, then we can do things in loops here. For example, here we're printing off the 5 city population or names here. And there's a nice pattern: city sub 0, city sub 1, city sub 2, city sub 3, and 4. And so this can be done in a loop. Once we convert this to arrays, we can do this in a loop for this. And you want to get used to thinking of arrays and for loops working with each other a lot there. You'll work with arrays and for loops a lot. They're confusing at first. I think my guess is you have to do it like 12 to 20 times. I'll write a loop and use an array in a loop before it starts making sense there. So it's important just to do it lots of times. So like, let's just do this one. I have this cities I'm trying to print off. I'm going to do a loop. So again, I'm going to put this a loop at the top for this time I call it count. I can call it different variables each time, or we can use reuse index if you want for count equals 0, count less than 5, count plus plus. Because again, I want to start at count 0 and want to go up and keep going till it's as long as it's less than 5 here. And then I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do this each time. So again, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a system.out.print, but rather than doing 0, 1, 2, I'm going to do, in this case, my variable count here. And then I don't need to do this stuff. So I'm basically replacing all of these with this one loop to print out, and I'm using this count to do it. So the first time through the loop, count will be 0, and I'll basically have done this. Then I'll add 1 to count because I have this count plus plus, and then count will be 1. I'll start 0, 1, and I'll do this one. And then it'll be 2, 3, 4. Each time count is incremented until count gets to 5 and it stops. It doesn't go in the loop when count is 5 for that. So again, get used to trying to add, use loops, for loops, and arrays together with this. So again, one of the students who says asking, what about the populations here? So how do we do that? So again, we have the city names here. We want to do the population. So we're going to need another array. And I'm going to make this an array of integers. And I'm going to follow the same kind of format, int, braces instead of string. And then the name, I'm going to call this populations. Equals new int sub 5. So I'm going to follow again the same kind of format I did with this other one here to declare my array of populations. And now we are talking about where should you do this? Should you just make another loop here, one loop and then another loop? But that doesn't work, does it? Because then it asks for all the city names and then all the populations, and you don't remember what order you entered the cities there. So you don't necessarily need 2 loops like this. And again, it doesn't loop. So what we can do is just expand this one loop. We're doing this one loop. Ask them to enter their city name and read that in, and then ask them right away to enter the city population. System out print line. Enter the population. And we're going to use but now, so now we're going to save this into our population array. Populations sub index equals input dot. And then this time we'll do a next int for this. So again, we ask for a city's name and read that in to the cities array. We ask for the population and we read that in to the populations array. Again, storing it in the index each time for this. So, so basically we've got, let me grab this. We've got 2 arrays, one named cities. Zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, and one named populations. And when they enter a value, when we run this, like they'll type in Duluth here, and we'll store it in the first location, and then in the population array, we'll store the population of Duluth there. And same with the next array. And I find it useful to draw pictures of my arrays when I'm first learning them for this. So again, I'm going to read in this population each time. Now this gets us into one problem that's just weird with Java. So I enter my first city, I type in Duluth, enter the population, 84,000. Now I hit enter and it skips over the city name here because it's going to go back up here and read this in. One thing you have to do, it sounds really strange, but if you're doing reading in strings and integers, after you read in an integer, you've got to do an empty read line. You have to say input dot next line to kind of read the rest of that line. There's still parts of that line there that you're not haven't read in yet. So you have to have an empty input.next line here. It's just a weird thing with Java. So now I can go through this. I can enter Duluth and the population. And now I'm on to city 2. So let's say we want to enter Chicago there. I don't know the population of Chicago. I'm guessing 4 million. I don't know what it is. And into the population. And again, you can do each city as you go for it. And then you can print those out. Now, right now, we're printing out each city. We want to print off each city and the population here. So we might want to just say the city and then plus the maybe some spacing. And then plus, and then the population. Now, one thing you have to remember with arrays and for loops is whatever you use as your index or your variable in your loop, in your for loop, that's what you should be using to access your arrays. So up here, I'm using index here. And so I say city subindex, population subindex. Down here, I'm using count. And so I say city sub count. I put count in the brackets, in the square brackets, or population sub count, because that's what I used in my loop here. Some people will shorten this and just put things like for like I, and just use I in this loop to shorten things up. And so you'll often see this for int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and city sub I, population sub I. So that's we usually don't want short variable names, but we do often allow them for counter variables in loops. And common ones are like I, J, K, X, and Y, things like that are things. Not so much, I don't know why, but not so much A, B, C. More like I, J, K, and X, Y, Z are common counter variables. There's people, I don't know why they use them that. I is short for index, it's probably the most common one. So one last thing before we go. So this initial thing, this works okay, but the printout doesn't look that well. You can see my printout here. Doesn't line up the populations or anything very well. They're all jagged. So you can do some formatting for that. And we have some links in the instructions on how to do, where were we? Do formatting. There's also sample solutions to these problems here. So if you go to the learning activity, there's some information about how to do some formatting here if you want to get it all nice and pretty there. And then there's the little link here to the sample solutions here. Chris walks through these with and without arrays here. And so you can then look at the sample solutions and see how he sets it up. And he does all the fancy formatting here, so you can see it in use for it. We didn't get to calculating the average and the totals there, but that's done in here also in these sample solutions. So Friday, we're going to do the pesky tourist problem. This is an image processing problem with arrays where we take 3 pictures and we have a tourist that keeps getting in our way of all the pictures. And so we're going to remove the tourist from the pictures using our arrays. We're going to do that. So we'll do that on Friday. We'll do the pesky tourist problem. Okay? I don't know if you remember the pesky tourist problem, but yeah. Yeah, you'll get the question. Yep.
Question about budget things for the assignment. Every like a lot of the bottom has a problem with the parents every time. That's it. December and like days was like 6 January.
Right, so you're probably kind getting the data in, so that way we long with the data, so you're getting the data in. And then we're trying to get probably the same data, in where like where you're getting your indexes are probably not right. So your start index and end index, somehow one of those is wrong. Probably. So you're, and then you're adding eight, you're getting beyond the end of the array. Okay, so I would add, once you get the start index and the end index, add a little print statement. Print out what those are,
Okay,
and then you'll see what, see if you can see what those are.
all right. Thank you.
Yep. You too. Sure.
I'll ask you later. About that last.
I have it here. This one?
I had it so printed with the total afterwards.
Uh-huh.
I just literally put the add relation index one at index two.
Okay,
or
yeah,
0 through
right,
5.
yes.
Is there a better way to do that?
We'll learn, I mean, because that one thing we want to be able to do is just change the size of this and not have to change our code very much.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what I figured.
There, so, yeah, so we'll look at ways of doing that, but you can actually use a loop and then total up and create like a total variable. And every time through the loop, like rather than printing off the population, add the population to the, well, here, let's just do it here. So we start the total equals 0. And then here's our loop. We're printing it out, but we're also saying total equals total plus population.
High, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I had it close. I had something like that. With
yeah.
Okay.
So, and then when you're, oh yeah, and when you're done, then you can just down here, you can print off the total.
Okay.
Right? Yep, that's what
All
we
right,
know.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Hey.